Hello everyone and welcome to episode 54 of This Nintendo Life. It's a podcast about Nintendo and about this particular life that we live in, about Nintendo and games. And I need to say words out of my mouth and they're coming out, but do they make any sense? Who knows anymore? Only people. And people are here. Bally, you are people. Hi.
I'm here, MBZ. I've successfully gotten through the Brussels lockdown.
Yeah, man, what a week it's been for you over there in the Europe place where things are going crazy. It's all about armed guards outside McDonald's.
Yep.
Tell us what's going on, Bally. How have you been?
Yeah, basically there was a massive security threat following the Paris attacks, and everyone in Brussels at the weekend was told, get inside, it's a lockdown, we're going to be performing some raids, we don't want anyone to get injured. And then like on the Sunday night it was crazy because I got like an email from work saying like, if you're living in central Brussels, like keep away from the windows, stay inside, this kind of thing. And it was all just so eerie, and
it's like a police state almost.
It really was like a police state, and it was really scary because I like went out to get some food on the Sunday, and I didn't want to go too far, obviously, just because I was walking around when it was quite quiet, and the only place that was open was McDonald's, complete with 4 armed guards outside of it. So I got my McDonald's and went back to my flat, and
we can't protect capitalism without armed guards
Precisely,
outside McDonald's.
Yeah, I'm sure that the American embassy just plopped all those armed guards there. But,
I'm sure they did. Yeah.
It was surreal, and like it's getting a bit better now in terms of people walking about, but there's still a ton of armed guards, and yeah. It's a bit mental.
Yeah, well, we wish you well. Hope everything goes okay. But you did manage to play some video games this week, or the last 2 weeks.
Yeah,
so.
Exactly. Like, stay inside. Like, who'd want to stay inside and play video games? That sounds like a terrible option. But yeah, that's what I did. So.
Well, good stuff. Bally, before we talk about those video games, how about you lay out what else we're going to be discussing on the show?
We are going to be talking about what we've been playing. We are also going to dive into some emails, and it's that time of year. It's the time of Black Friday. It's kind of infected the UK as well as the Americas.
And apparently Australia as well. There's a NeoGAF thread saying, like, why is this in Australia? What's going on? So, yes, it's kind of swept the world.
We're going to talk about some sales.
Yeah, we're going to have a bit of discussion about game sales and the culture of sales and whether it harms or helps the industry and all that kind of stuff. Lots of things we can dive into there. So, look forward to that discussion when we get to it. But for now, we're going to talk about the video games we've been playing the last couple of weeks. So, Bally, what have you been playing?
Oh, I've been playing little bits of lots of things. So I'm going to start with Ollie Ollie. I finished this up. Well, I say finished. I got through all the sort of, what do you even call it? Like career mode, I think it's called.
Yeah, I mean it's a weird one because like I don't think there's any end credits when you finish all the stages. It's kind of one of those games where you just hop in, do the challenges, try and get high score and stuff, and just bounce from level to level, and then you unlock the pro ones if you get 5 stars. So It's kind of one of those games that doesn't end, which is fine. You kind of just leave it when you want to and when you feel like you're done with it, and after like 7 or 8 hours, that's when I thought like, I've done enough of this. I had my fill, and I was done. So
I called it at about 6.5. There was definitely one point in time where I was like, I'm gonna pilot wings this game. I'm gonna do every single mission, get the full marks on every single one, and I was like, I just hit a bit of a wall because there's some of the missions you have to perform a specific trick, and it's all about the way you waggle the circle pad, and it just doesn't feel very good, and I could never pull off the trick I needed, and I was like, I can't really be bothered with this. And like I was really enjoying it up till that point. Like I really did enjoy going back through some of the levels, getting high scores, just pulling off sick grinds.
Oh man, you know what? The best feeling in that game is just having an entire level where you don't touch the ground, where you are just nailing grind to grind to grind. fucking fantastic feeling.
And this game definitely needs praise for having an innovative control scheme because it's really unique. And there's been, Tony Hawk came out this year and got absolutely panned.
It did.
And it's so nice to see a skateboarding game come out that's actually really unique and awesome. And I think this game, it's all about the mechanics. I think it's quite suited to you, MBZ, because, I don't think the music's the best.
No, I in fact turned the music off. Like, I just had the sounds on. I really like the
mental.
sound design in this game, actually. Like, the grinds and everything, it all, comes out of the speakers really well. But, yeah, it's a podcast game for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I've been sort of getting into this mode where I'll put one headphone in as have a podcast in one ear and then have the 3DS volume coming out the speakers.
Right, yeah.
So yeah, I was doing that most of it, and there's definitely one track which is quite bassy and I don't know.
Yeah.
It sat well with me. It was quite a good tune. I think some of the level design is really cool. I really enjoyed like the aesthetic of the Soviet base. You're like grinding on missiles and tanks.
I think that might
stuff.
be the only thing I like about that area.
Yeah.
Because I feel like my problem with the snow stuff was you had way too many points that you had to hit the ground and you couldn't just continuously grind through, and that's probably what made it the toughest part of the game for me.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of landing and jumping, and there's so much more landing on the ground in that level, which is to explain quickly, you have to press a button to land, and it's a different button to grind and a different one to land, and it feels weird. I think we've been over this before, but
yeah, I mean it's the pat your stomach, rub your head, or whatever.
Like
the vice
jumping
versa.
and landing is harder to do in this game than a standard platformer.
Absolutely,
in a good way. So I for the price, I think I got this for £3.50 or something, and I got it on Wii U.
And you have the Wii U version as well, so you can play that whenever you want to try it out with the analog sticks.
Yeah, I'd highly recommend this for a price below anything below like €4. Look at me.
Yeah, you're in fucking Brussels mode now, just euros.
Or pounds or dollars, any cheap price. I'd highly recommend just go for it. Have a good 5-6 hours of this game. It's definitely worth it.
Especially because on Nintendo platforms, it's one of the rare cross-buy titles that's available, so you get it on both. So.
Yeah, and at some point I'll just jump into the Wii U one for like all of 5 seconds. I'm sure just to see what it's like. I've also been tackling a bit more Mario Maker. I've sort of moved. I made my hard as balls level for you to play in BZ.
You did. That was good fun.
I moved away from the creation and I did a lot more of the playing. So I'd never touched really, the 100 Mario challenge, and all the sort of. There's like a 100 Mario challenge, a 10 Mario challenge.
Right, so the 100 Mario challenge is the one where you play random levels picked online, and then you have like the easy, normal, hard mode. Whereas the 10 Mario thing is Nintendo internally designed levels, which for the most part are really easy, but they also do really interesting things and kind of spark your mind with ideas.
Definitely. And I was really impressed by like some of the Nintendo made levels. Does that mode just keep going, or does it get to
So there are a set number of levels. I believe it's like maybe 18 worlds of 4 stages each. That's the way it's laid out. Like if you go to your stages in the core spot and hit the minus button, it flips over to the Nintendo stages, so you can play those whenever you want, as soon as you've unlocked them.
Okay.
So like maybe playing through it maybe 6-7 times, you'll be able to unlock every stage, and then once you do that, it will unlock the 4 stages they did in the Nintendo World Championships. So those are all on there as soon as you have finished up all the 10 Mario Challenge stuff. So
and like I was just, I heard Dan Reicher does this where he like keeps a little notebook on him. And writes down notes of like potential Mario Maker stages. When an idea comes to his head, he'll just like note it down. And I've started doing that for when I next make a stage. I'm just like every time I have a neat idea or I see something while I'm playing the single player. I say the single player, you know what I mean. I'm playing stages. I'll note something down. And be like, I'll implement that into my level. So I've noted down a couple of those, and hopefully at some point I will come back and create another devilish course for you to complete. One example of a course I saw, which I just thought they're just when you're doing the easy and medium modes, which is what I did on the 100 Mario challenge. I've not tried hard yet, although I definitely want to try that. Like just some really crazy ideas in there. Like really, I really enjoy, and this is something I really want to get into, is really short stages. So literally
Right.
one awesome idea, and then you're done. And the good thing about that is you can make that one little idea as hard or as easy as you want. Like because you're not having to constantly jump through multiple hoops. Through different parts of a stage, you're just saying, here's the challenge, you can either do it or you can't do it. And there was just some really unique stuff, like one guy like put the bullet bills, so you know the bullet bills, you can like change the height of the sort of stands that they're on.
Yes.
He
Yeah.
basically did those to their maximum height, made like about 6 bullet bills that were on top of floating clouds,
Okay.
and you were below all these columns, but you had to jump up at the right time in order for it to jump between the gaps of the columns, and it'll push you over the flag goal. So the
Okay.
problem was that every time you jumped, the columns would squash you, and like you would die.
Hmm.
So the level was called something like time your jump, and it was just such a unique idea that I was just like, wow, that is bloody brilliant. Like that is such a good idea, and it was so short. It was literally you just jump once, but you just have to time that jump perfectly. And I'd
Hmm.
love to try and get into making something like that. It's just one really neat idea. Say, MBZ, have a go at this. It could make quite a fun video as well. Um,
Totally. No, and I think that is very valuable because when you first start out, like you get those kind of short, quick ideas out your system. At least I did, and then you have everything available to you, and you're like, oh, I need to make the most like complex, nuanced, like
mm,
long, interesting course possible, and that mentality kind of carries forward for a long time, unless you kind of take a step back and be like, wait a second, I can do like this short idea, and it can still be just as valuable, and also not take as long time to
yeah.
implement. So. Yeah,
Or
totally down for more of that stuff.
you know that those lava Bowser Castle levels where you hit the final axe and like the floor falls away.
Yes.
So I just
Yeah,
saw
yeah.
a tiny, tiny level that was literally two Yoshis in a box, and the
Okay.
bottom of the box was the floor that falls away. So you literally just jump over this box onto the axe, and the floor just falls away, and the Yoshis die in the lava, and that's it.
Yeah.
And it was
Yeah.
just like, wow,
People making very like
wow.
profound statements about the state of the world and everything.
It was just so simple. It wasn't like they were killing Yoshi in some bizarre way like other stages have. This was just you jump over the box and you kill the Yoshis. Well done.
Yeah.
Like that's it. It just
Yeah.
it was weird. So I just
There
I
is this weird like meta level of like artistic Mario Maker levels that are trying to,
yeah.
either in a mock way or sometimes in a serious way, trying to make some sort of profound statement. Like some guy made, I can't remember what the course was called, but something about how his life was terrible and like having a bad day, and like this course was literally just the plane, like the straight plane with nothing in it, and you just run to the end and jump on the flagpole. It's like my life is empty. Like there's nothing in it, and there's nothing in this Mario Maker
I
stage. You
just
know?
yeah, just the ability to name a level what you want and come up with some comedic twist on stuff. I think that's
Right.
really cool. And this sort of
It's brilliant. It really
underlying
is.
thing. So yeah, I really look forward to coming back to this, and I think we both will in the future for hopefully a long time to come.
Yeah,
We
I
just
hope it has legs, and especially with Nintendo, like hopefully supporting it consistently through the next few months. I certainly hope
mm,
to continue playing Mario Maker. Absolutely.
and very quickly, finally, I've been playing a bit more Fire Emblem Awakening. I'm only up to sort of chapter 7 or 8. I'm sort of getting the hang of merging units. It was a bit weird at first, but this game like mechanically is just so different to like Fire Emblem 7 and like what I'm used to. It's really, really different, this idea of merging the units. They've also completely changed the magic system, it feels like, where the weapons triangle for magic is weird, and like you were saying to me earlier, MBZ, that the weapons triangle in general there's less emphasis on it than there was in a game like Fire Emblem 7, and it's just mechanically feeling so different. And I really like it. Don't get me wrong, but I'm just maybe I need to get used to it a bit more almost. because I mean, they're completely different games. That's what I'm trying to say here. They're just completely
Yeah.
different games. And I think I like it. I like that it's different. And I am intrigued to see what they do for Fates. Fates? It's called Fates, isn't it?
Yes,
Yes.
it is.
In
Yes.
terms of, well, there's three of them, but yeah.
Well, yeah, they're crazy people because they're literally releasing 3 Fire Emblem
Yeah.
games. Because
So
why not?
I'm intrigued to see what they do for that game because this game is completely different to like 7. A really strange random little point. I can't seem to make like the bookmark system work, and I asked you about
I
this.
think
MBZ.
it's just like a thing of lack of understanding. I probably need to sit down with you and be like, right, click this, do this, and that's how it works.
I need a little.
It's
tutorial.
not that complicated, Bally, I assure you.
I'm sure it's not, but I'm missing something obvious. But I am really loving it. I think getting used to the way the units merge, and when the units do merge, and you like make an attack, and then all of a sudden the extra unit comes in and finishes off an enemy. It's just so satisfying. Like, it is really cool. Or even when an enemy attacks you and your merged unit will defend the other unit, like they'll come in and make the block. I think those are really cool. And like this game, in terms of scope, just gives you so many more options with what you can do with your units and where you can place them and how you can use them.
I mean, like, in terms of classes and all that shit and weaponry, and like the whole thing is fucking way more expansive than Fire Emblem games you played before. So
yeah,
you're not even halfway there, son. Right now, like
and
there is a lot of depth there that comes with the rest of that game.
So I'm gonna talk about this game lots in the future. I think I'm struggling to finish it before the end of the year, so don't expect it in my top games of the year discussions. But yeah, really enjoying it, and I'll talk about it soon. But for now,
okay, cool.
MBZ, what have you been diving into?
Well, literally, I think the day after we recorded our last episode, I went in and finished off Metal Gear Solid 5: The Phantom Pain.
Good ending.
That's one of the best games of the year, Bally. Absolutely is. It's so mechanically solid. It's probably one of the most creative games out this year, and I think that's a weird and interesting comparison you can draw between Mario Maker and Metal Gear, is that they both allow creativity in different ways. Like, the playing of Metal Gear is going to be so dramatically different for two different people, and even now I'm watching Drew Scanlon play through it, and he is approaching situations and using weapons and employing strategies that I just never did, and I just played it completely differently. And that is just it's such a fun part of it. Like, the sandbox openness is wonderful. I never talked about the sound design before, but I think this game has like some of the best sound design in anything
game.
I've played. It's not. It really isn't. Like, not only because it's not as story driven as previous Metal Gears, but you're always going to have people on the radio and things chatting about. You can hear guards and what they're saying, so you always want to be paying attention. You don't want to be listening to something else. Also, a lot of the story is told through cassette tapes, which you can kind of play whenever you want. In previous Metal Gear games, there were codec conversations, so basically someone would ring you up and you'd have to go through a bunch of dialogue on screen, and there was no way to skip through it. Like, a lot of it was important for the story and everything, but it kind of slowed down the action, and you weren't able to be active while listening to that stuff. Whereas now, because you have this cassette recorder, you can kind of put on a tape, listen to some of the backstory while riding on your horse to your next mission or whatever. While you're doing the traversal stuff in the open world, it lets you kind of have that stuff in the background, which is good. But yeah, the sound design is just fantastic. The noises that his weapons make, and when you're running, it's really hard to describe, but there's this really kind of satisfying crunch, and it's one of those things about Metroid Fusion I really like, is these little sound effects that come with it, it just makes the experience for me. It helps with, the game feel and everything. I do feel that a lot of people are disappointed with it, specifically for story reasons, and the second half of that game is fucking bizarre, and the way that it plays out is just the weirdest thing. The way that the final mission just pops randomly, and you have this massive revelation at the end that kind of comes out of fucking nowhere, with no setup, with no, build. Like, the thing about Metal Gear games is that they are all about, taking you up to a climax. Like, there is going to be a final thing, and it will build and build and build, and at the end there'll be a ridiculous, crazy twist, and some stupid shit will happen. This game is nothing like that, and I think a lot of it probably has to do with the way that development went, and the whole Kojima Konami stuff, which is really unfortunate, but it does kind of leave a sour taste, I think, in a lot of people's mouths. I think, personally for me, I'd played so much of the game at that point, I was kind of ready to be done with it, so I wasn't too worried about all that stuff.
It sounds like the innovation and the mechanics are the overwhelming thing that is great about this game, and that the story, compared
100%.
to the others, kind of took a backseat.
It did. It totally did, and maybe that was because they tried to hire Kiefer Sutherland to be the voice of Snake. Maybe it's, other reasons with Kojima Konami, who knows. But
as in,
I will say that
because they got him, he's too expensive to do more cutscenes.
Right. Or maybe that's just the way that they wanted to write it. I really want to read a book on, the story behind the development of this game. I think that is probably more fascinating than the game itself, is the development of this thing and how it came together. But yeah, I absolutely fucking love the gameplay. It is probably one of the most cohesive action games ever made in the history of the medium. It is insanely good.
Especially
it's
in
going to
terms
be on
of,
a list for me at the end of the year.
In terms of explosions and gunfire and gunplay and that kind of thing, it's seems far and beyond what other games that I've seen, especially from a third person's perspective.
Yeah, no, it does spectacle well, and it also does the quiet moments, the stealthy stuff. You can go in guns blazing, you can not alert anyone. It's as Dan Reicher keeps saying in Metal Gear Scanlan, it's an open world video game, Drew. Do what you want. There's any way to approach any given situation. So, good times with that. And so the other thing I've been playing is Axiom Verge, which came out earlier this year. And a lot of people have said some really great stuff about this. It's probably infamous for being shouted out as in an episode of RFN where Johnny Metz described him going over to the booth to see this game at E3, and Reggie Fils-Aimé coming along and being like, "Man, that looks like Metroid," and then Johnny being like, "Well, someone's got to make it," which is one of my favorite quips.
How did Reggie react? I can't remember. Did he just smile and walk away?
Yeah, something like that.
It wasn't like there was a conversation that followed. It was just this interesting silence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, indeed. But yeah, I mean, Reggie was right to be like, "Man, that looks like Metroid," because Axiom Verge looks like Metroid. I think, the one thing that I always take above and beyond anything in one of these games is how well it controls. And I think Axiom Verge is a really nicely controlling game. It's not a Super Metroid where it kind of feels sluggish in areas, but it has a good feel to it. And a weird thing is, if you want to shoot at a diagonal angle, because of the way that this game is made, and there are lots of different weapons and attachments and things, you can't do what you do in Metroid Fusion, where you hold down a shoulder button to point your gun at an angle. You have to use the D-pad or the analog stick to point it at that specific angle. But the problem is if you're pointing at that angle, you're also moving forward at the same time. So his solution to this problem is if you hold down, I think it's RB on the Xbox controller, it locks you into place. So when you move your D-pad, you're not going to move your character. You simply move the gun arm independently, right? So if you want to shoot at an angle, you always have to remember to lock yourself in place first and then do it at the angle, which takes some getting used to, I have to say. It is a little bit I'm pressing a lot of things here and I need to, take time to think about what I'm doing. But it works. I got used to it, and I think it is effective in the end. The game looks great, especially explosions, just the sprites and the way they're drawn and like the way that stuff just blows up in this game looks pretty fantastic. It's an effect that's hard to describe, but it's almost like a firework shower with like weird like bits and pieces thrown off it. Like
it is 16-bit, isn't it? Or it's like
I
giving that
think
impression.
so, yeah. Yeah, pretty much. Like it feels like it straddles this weird line where the art kind of looks 8-bit, but it certainly has sensibilities of the 16-bit era.
Okay.
Yeah, that stuff looks great. Like the health pickups are like kind of these glinting things. They're not like orbs in Super Metroid. And a very important thing that I noticed was they don't disappear. That's one of the most frustrating things I find about some Metroid-style games is like if you get some health that's dropped from an enemy, and you have to like get to it quickly before it phases out of the world. You get health,
you see MBZ, Metroid Prime fixes this problem as when you're charging your beam, it sucks in the drops.
Well, you know what Axiom Verge does?
The same.
It just magnetically goes to you without having to charge anything. They just magnetically have the health go to you. So that's like an even better thing. Like that happens and it doesn't disappear. So if you're dealing with a lot of enemies at once and like some health is just sitting behind you, you don't have the stress of being like, okay, I need to take this guy out quickly so I can jump back to get the health. It'll just stay there and like it's just great, which is wonderful.
What about bosses?
So far, I feel like the bosses have been tough but fair. Like, they have distinctive patterns to them, and they'll do a lot of damage if if you get hit by them, but they are definitely very much defeatable if you're concentrating. You know, you need to focus and be like, okay, you know, this is this attack, I need to do this specific thing, and dodge out the way, or like focus fire on this one area. So far they have not like frustrated me, but they've not been like super easy either. They straddle a nice line, and that stuff works pretty well. I will say as well is that if you die in a certain area and you're off exploring, the nice thing is, like, the map stays filled in. So no matter what, like, you still have that progress made on the map. That's all, like, locked there. And also, I think if you pick up a piece of equipment but die before you get back to a save room, you still keep that piece, even if you've been killed. Because I picked up a health upgrade, and then I went into an area, I died, I went back to the save room, and the health upgrade was already picked up. Which is like, it's this lovely refining of like, you don't necessarily have to worry about death as much. Like, it's less of a consequence, and it keeps that stuff, well done. It's really good. The map is also much more well designed in terms of you have the ability to set down markers. So if there is an area that you want to go back to and you don't want to forget about, you have 2 markers, I think, that you can place on each subsection of the map. So you can be like, okay, this square in particular, I want to plop a thing there so I don't forget about this later in the game. And that's just a nice thing, like they did that in Spirit Tracks and Phantom Hourglass on DS with Zelda, where you could like draw on the map and like have reminders and stuff. I just think that's the sort of thing that more Metroid-style games should have, because those maps are big and they have lots of different secret areas and things that you want to find, but a lot of the time you'll just forget about it and you won't go back. I do think that like one of the problems that happens in Metroid-style games is there are certain areas where you can't go back through because of an event that's happened previously. So like in Metroid Fusion, I think it's like Sector 2, and there's like an enemy or a boss that has destroyed a door, and that door is basically ineffective for the rest of the game. You can't go back through it. If you want to get back to that area, you have to go through another kind of subsection, and it takes a long time. And the annoying thing about that is like, the map doesn't display that is a place you can't get back through. Like, I really wish that more games in this style would be like, okay, if you find an area and it's blocked off to you, then it should pop up on the map and say, okay, at your current point in time, you can't get through it right now. To save, like, if you go back there again and you still can't get through it, like, it locks off options, and it means you're doing less wandering around. And I think this doesn't quite solve that issue, but at least it lets you place things down to let you remind yourself, okay, I probably shouldn't go back there yet because I don't have what I need. So it's a nice little solution to help with that problem.
How is this rating in terms of your favorite, Metroidvanias?
It's definitely up there. I don't think I like it as much as Ori and the Blind Forest from earlier this year. it's definitely much more in the mold of a Super Metroid because there's less linearity to it. There's totally getting items and thinking, okay, I got to remember that place where I couldn't get through. Maybe I can use this item there. Like, there's a lot more explorative elements, which,
and I think that's going to
that
appeal to the Metroid fans more, I guess, is to make it.
Yeah, for me,
Metroid.
obviously being a fan of Metroid Fusion, Ori and the Blind Forest was way more down my line because you're just next thing to next.
Linear.
Well, it is linear, but also like it has a post game where you have all the abilities, and then you can go back through the whole map and just do as much as you please. There's certainly elements from Super Metroid that this game takes that I don't like, including a grappling hook that is a piece of shit. Like, I don't like the grappling hook in Super Metroid. It's bad,
weird.
I think it controls poorly.
Yeah, it
and
does.
I feel like Tom Happ, who is the sole designer, creator, like guy who made the music, like he is the one guy who made this entire game, which is fucking impressive. But the way he has designed the grappling hook fucking sucks. Oh my god, it doesn't work well. It's hard to describe like exactly the feeling, but it's...
Maybe he was just trying to emulate Super Metroid.
Yeah, that's what I think, and like in doing so, it just ends up with a bad experience. So,
but I'm sure there's a lot of Super Metroid fans out there who are like, yeah, he's kept the crappy grapple hook.
Yeah, no, totally. The thing is, like, this game definitely distinguishes itself from those games because of these new elements that he introduces, like just the glitch beam.
Yeah,
and what that does is you can use it on any enemy in the game, and it will change their behavior. It will glitch them out, and they'll look weird, but it will change their default behavior. And this can either help you or hurt you, and it depends, like, you just have to figure it out and go for it and see if it works. So there's a couple of enemies that are really interesting when you use the beam on them. One of them are, like, these Cheerios, like, at the end of the original Metroid where you're fighting Mother Brain, and those, like, circle things, like, moving around everywhere. Yeah. So there are these Cheerio guys who are just like moving around the screen, and if you beam them, then they suddenly get powered up and they're able to break through certain parts of the environment. And so, like, I saw one that was just bopping around inside a little box, and I, put my beam on it, and it started breaking through, and that basically put me down a path to a secret, which I wouldn't have found otherwise if I hadn't been messing around with the glitch beam. So that kind of like opens up new areas. There's also like these guys who shoot out laser beams, and if you glitch them, the laser beams turn from red to blue, which means that they can't hurt you anymore, but they in fact hurt your enemies. So like if you're near something and the laser beam goes past, it will destroy an enemy for you, or it'll destroy part of an environment for you. So it's this weird subversion of like taking the enemies and kind of bringing them over to your side in a sense, and letting them like help you find things in the environment, which is it's fantastic. Like, it just changes everything, and it makes exploring so much more interesting. But like, a lot of the environment is hard to discern whether it's a place you can break through. So like the other exploration tool that you have is a drill, and sometimes like parts of the map where you can drill just will look exactly like the rest of it. Like, just bits of wall just have the same texture, but randomly you'll be able to use the drill to get through it. And I think that maybe that's a bit of a random element. Sorry, what are you saying?
In Super Metroid and Metroid games, that's the same with like your bombs when you're in the morph ball, like the bits of the wall look the same, but then you blow them out.
Yeah, and I feel like maybe something like an X-ray visor or something along those lines would help. I don't know if that's an upgrade. That may well be something I get later on in the game, and that could...
Yeah, I would gamble on it being in the game.
Yeah. That would help things enormously. But that's a little bit of a minor thing that is a little annoying at times when you want to find all the secrets possible. But yeah, so far it's fucking fun. It's one of those games that I'll just sit down and absorb myself in for a while, and the music's great as well. I have been listening to podcasts while playing it, but just having the music on low, I watched a bit of the start of the kind of funny Let's Play, or quick look, I guess, of Axiom Verge, and it was Colin and Nick, and Nick's like, okay, just wait for this intro and just listen, and then just boom, like this pumping beat starts, and like the sci-fi verb over the top of it. Like the main menu music is fantastic, and like that sound continues through. It's it's in every area so polished, and it is kind of incredible that one man did fucking everything in this game. It's quite a sight to behold, Bally. And unfortunate that the way that it's built and the engine that it runs on is not something that is available on Wii U, which means it's unlikely to be on that platform. But dude, it's a hell of a Metroid game, and it just continues to hammer home the point that if Nintendo aren't going to make them, well, fuck them, because other people are, and they're just as good.
Hopefully games like this act as a rocket up their bum, like saying...
I hope so.
Come on, Nintendo, let's make one, because it's getting ridiculous, but who knows?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm really enjoying it. I'm going to probably finish it for next time, and that's Axiom Verge. So... I guess that's pretty much it. I don't think there's anything else to talk about. I've just been deep in essays, Bally, so I haven't been able to play too much else. But,
sounds fun.
Yeah, I know. Great times.
Get them out of the way before Game of the Year,
Absolutely. You know what? I'm very glad that Xenoblade is coming, so I'm gonna go home as soon as I've finished all my stuff here at uni, and I'm just gonna gorge. I'm gonna gorge on that open giant RPG. Oh, it's gonna be tasty. But yeah, we'll get to that. For now, we are going to take a break, and we'll be right back at you with some of your emails. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
That time again, guys. It's time for your emails. We put out the call and we got plenty in. The email address we always want more is ThisNintendoLife@gmail.com. That's ThisNintendoLife@gmail.com. Our first email is from Brandon. Hey MBZ and Bally, Brandon here from Arcata, California, writing in again with a question about the Fire Emblem series. I entered the franchise as most people did when Awakening came out and have to date logged more hours than I care to mention on that game. With the hype about Fates arriving to Western audiences next year, I've finally been going back and playing some of the earlier entries in the franchise. This got me thinking, with Awakening having been planned as the swan song of the series due to poor sales and low interest in the GameCube and Wii titles, will we ever see a proper Fire Emblem game on a home console again? I think the popularity is there now thanks to Awakening and Fates, but the install base would have to be high enough to warrant the investment. I could see it happening at the end of the NX's life cycle, but only if the hardware sells exceedingly well. Thanks for reading my very long question, and I hope Bally is settling in well to his new home.
All right. Well, Brandon, I think that there's a few interesting things we can pick out here regarding Fire Emblem being on a home console. Obviously, it's been a long time since that happened, and it's weird because Fire Emblem has its roots in the home console space because the original games were on NES and then Super Nintendo, and then they kind of made the jump over to GBA after a long kind of hiatus. But will we see more of these on like NX or something like that? Wii U seemingly is, not a option that's going to happen, but we do have to say that there is a pseudo Fire Emblem game coming out on Wii U, which is the Shin Megami Tensei Cross Fire Emblem, the crossover.
Shebang.
The shebang, that whole craziness. So that's a thing. I mean, that's something. He says, like, the install base wouldn't be high enough to warrant the investment. I take issue with that because I feel like Fire Emblem is not a series that you need to have a large install base for because it is rather niche, because it speaks to an audience who are going to be getting the console day one regardless,
I
feel like
Kart.
It doesn't matter as much.
Yeah.
Right. It's not a big thing, so I'm not sure that's as big a deal. But do you see this happening in the NX's life cycle, Bally? Maybe it's more likely because of the fact that people believe that NX will be a crossover between handheld and console, that there will be a Fire Emblem game that runs on both.
I would be really surprised if a Fire Emblem game didn't come to NX. I think it does depend a lot on how Fates does, but I think judging by how well Awakening did and now the improved install base of the 3DS system since Awakening came out, I think that potentially it could sell even better than Awakening, but we'll wait and see on that one. He suggested, Brandon, you suggested sort of the end of the NX's life cycle. I don't see why it would be that far away, to be honest. I think it would be in the first year or two, really. I couldn't...
Gee, really?
Why not,
Well, see, okay, the thing that I'm going to say and disagree with you here is Fire Emblem Fates is essentially 3 games. It feels like they are just putting everything into this as they can because they're going to take a break. Like, it feels like they just need to get out their system and then just stop for a while and not do any Fire Emblem things and maybe focus on another Paper Mario or an Advance Wars, as you would love for them to do, Bally. Maybe take some different projects on and do some different things for a while, let Fire Emblem ruminate, and then come back in full force later on in the NX's life cycle. So I do actually kind of agree more with Brandon to this end.
But we don't even know how long the NX's life cycle is going to be at this point. So
well, yeah, true. Obviously.
I don't know. I'd go with middle rather than perhaps the end. But who knows?
Yeah.
I think Awakening's proven it's a really successful series, and I hope it comes to NX because that'd be really cool. And I've never played a home console Fire Emblem game, and why not jump in on the NX if it is a home console?
I mean, there's not a huge difference really. At this point, the fact that Awakening is practically a 3D thing anyway.
Yeah.
It doesn't make a huge difference. It's the gameplay is the same. It's one of those things where it transfers pretty easily, and I just prefer them on handhelds personally because they are the sort of things where you want to, for me anyway, level people up and just spend time just grinding while listening to something. I don't prefer that thing on a home system. I much prefer the handheld version. So we'll see. NX is still just such a mystery, and who even knows where that'll go.
I am super excited to find out what that is going to be. Like the NX, but
next year is going to be fucking crazy.
Next year,
when the veil is finally lifted and we see what they have done, man.
We've got to. Speaking of that, we've got to do some 2016 predictions.
I mean that'll happen. We need to revisit our 2015 ones.
Revisit 2015.
Yeah.
That'll be hilarious. I have no idea what I even said, but
I can't remember either.
That'll
so it'll be fun.
So right,
yeah.
Look forward to that. The first episode of 2016.
Mm-hmm.
Next question is from Adam. Hello, you lovely people. I've just recently discovered your podcast and I love to listen to them while making levels on Mario Maker. On the subject of making levels, I've also been really interested in mapping for the source engine and game design in general. I'm thinking of starting a career in game design as well. What I'm wondering is, what has been your experience with making games, whether it be mapping in source or playing around with things like Scratch or WarioWare DIY or any other medium? Have a good talk, Adam.
Interesting. I have never, futzed around with any sort of game creation tools or programs at all. I've considered in the past trying to do some kind of ROM hack stuff with Fire Emblem and, maybe looking into the deep dark corners of the internet of how you do that and what you would require, because forever, Bally, I have wanted someone to make a ROM hack of Fire Emblem that's based on Game of Thrones, where you take the plot of the first book and then make maps that are kind of built around the things that happen in that. And I just think that would be fucking awesome, right? But no one's made it yet.
So you're going to make it, that's what we're saying.
Well, obviously not, because I don't have the artistic ability to, create a fucking pixel art of Sean Bean's face, like I need someone talented to be able to do that. But I have considered in the past being like, yeah, it could be a cool thing to do. I know that like there are quite a few people, people from the Pokemon community back in the day, Nick especially, like has done work on like ROM hacking stuff with certain Pokemon games. He was starting to make a Pokemon thing which included like people from Pokemosh Pit as the gym leaders, and like you fight them as you go through.
That is cool.
And it was a cool idea. I don't know how far he got with it. I can't remember if he managed to actually have some working thing going. But that was a thing back in the day that I could have probably dipped my toe into. I just never ended up doing it because maybe I was probably just too intimidated, and there's a lot of weird stuff going on. Bally, of course, you have zero interest in this. As someone who's barely able to fucking turn on a PC.
I was going to say, what do you think my answer to this question is going to be, Adam?
Yeah, pretty obvious.
I mean, he has said he's only just discovered the podcast, so I'll let him off on this one. But if you've listened to this podcast, you'll know I'm not exactly a PC god when it comes to
a tech wizard, one might say.
Yes, a platforming wizard. So yeah, no, I have made a Mario Maker level. That's what I've done. It took a lot of hacking.
You've got the design process down. You just need the technical side to come into play.
I don't know what to say really. Yeah, I don't even know what mapping in Source is all about.
So the Source engine is Valve's engine, I believe, and I think there are tools on Steam that allow you to do mods and stuff. I mean, that's sort of thing. I think a lot of people kind of get into game like creation through the modding scene. Like it's a way of taking something that someone else has created and kind of riffing on it and adding some of your own input, and it doesn't require building something from scratch, but it means that you can kind of have a foundation and make something cool. And I think a lot of people do stuff with mods and that kind of thing, so it's not something that I have, plans to try in the future, but I've always considered it an interesting thing. I've never played WarioWare DIY. That's a weird one, actually. That's an interesting thing because I heard that it was pretty complex, actually. Like, the tools that you had for that game were kind of interesting to me.
Yeah, and I think, in general, it'll be interesting to see what the next step to Mario Maker is. Are other games companies going to try making more do-it-yourself video games? Is that going to become a thing for the future with being able to share levels, create stuff online more? I'm intrigued to see if Mario Maker does spread to any other franchise or anything. It might be a lot trickier to make it work in another franchise, but we'll see, because I think it is quite cool that sort of modding experience can sort of become more mainstream, and someone like a noob like me can actually make a level. That's like a really cool thing that I never imagined doing before. So
yeah, absolutely, democratizing this stuff is just a smart thing, and it's cool. I can't remember what podcast I heard this on, but like I think it might be in Podcast Beyond, and Brian Altano was saying like, in 10 years' time, someone is going to be in the games industry and they're going to be like, I got my start doing design stuff by using Mario Maker.
Definitely.
I feel like that's something that will happen.
Yes. That is so true. But yeah, great question, Adam. And good luck with your creating and game design career. But yeah.
Yeah.
A final question is from Terrence from North Carolina. Hi guys, I have a question about Final Fantasy on the NX. I'm a huge fan of RPGs, and while Nintendo has released exclusives like Xenoblade Chronicles and its sequel, none of those have the impact that Square has on the industry with the Final Fantasy name. Clearly Nintendo has missed mainstream Final Fantasy on their home consoles since Final Fantasy VII went to Sony. However, the more recent Final Fantasy games have been on Microsoft as well as Sony, and Nintendo continues to have some stock with spin-offs like Crystal Chronicles series. With recent news that the NX may have a port of the MMORPG Final Fantasy XIV and Square's non-exclusivity, do you guys think it's possible that a Final Fantasy 15 comes to the NX, or even the new remake of Final Fantasy 7? I know a long question, but I love the show and will continue to be a fan. Terrence. Well.
Now I want to point out, Bally, that Terrence might be a farseer. He may be a predictor of futures, because this email was sent to us a full week and a half before the reveal of Cloud in Super Smash Bros. Which is prescient timing, I have to say.
We are very impressed, Terence. This is cool. You've got that Shulk foresight.
He does. The Monado is at his side, clearly. So yeah, it is a really interesting question, which now has come even more to the forefront because of Cloud's inclusion in Super Smash Bros. Bally, do you think it's a lock? Do you think that we can say 100% certainty that Final Fantasy VII is going to be coming to NX, or should we be a bit skeptical here?
I'm not a big corporate business guy, but
no.
I think some arms took a lot of twisting to get someone like Cloud into that game. And in my opinion, if you're going to do all that arm twisting and all those deals and put all that money across the table or whatever it took, why would you only go for a character in one game and not just say, hey, you're making that Final Fantasy VII remake on the PlayStation 4. We've got this new interesting system coming out. Would you like to chip in maybe on this deal and perhaps also release it on that? And, I'm sure Square might have been like, how much are you willing to pay? And Nintendo probably went, here's all our money. And yeah, who knows? All I'm saying is I think it would be weird for it to only be Cloud. And I think, yes, there was probably some other deal done that might be under lock and key at the moment, but who knows? I think especially Final Fantasy VII will be on NX.
Yeah, I don't think that money is being the thing that's driving Square to try and do this. Well, I mean, it is, but not in the sense that you were saying that Square was like, oh, Nintendo, how much are you going to pay us to do this? I feel like it's kind of the opposite in the sense that you look at the state of the Japanese games industry right now and the fact that PS4 is not doing fantastically over in Japan, and if Square are putting this much money behind a remake of Final Fantasy VII and Final Fantasy 15...
You want it on as many systems as possible, I guess.
Right, they need to get that everywhere, like PC, Xbox. Like Xbox doesn't matter in Japan, obviously, but for the Western market to some degree, and being able to put that on a Nintendo console, which potentially, if it's NX, will sell much better because of the handheld portion of it,
and especially in Japan.
It makes all the sense in the world for them to have a partnership with Nintendo. Now, they have said already that Final Fantasy VII is coming to PS4 first, right? So that doesn't preclude anything else. I'm pretty sure it's going to come to PC. I'm pretty sure that it will make its way to Xbox at some point. And it also opens up the floodgates for NX to be a platform there, as well as Final Fantasy 15 potentially being on NX, because if Final Fantasy 15 is only on PS4 as a viable platform in Japan, that's going to be a flop, I feel. Like, they need another viable platform for that thing to be on, because there's so much money invested in it. Like, it is a mainline Final Fantasy in, this generation. It has cash thrown at it, basically. So they need to make that stuff back, and I do feel that Nintendo probably have a little bit of an advantage in the Japanese market here, because if NX turns out to be part handheld, then it's going to sell gangbusters compared to PS4, and as such, they'll have an install base to sell these games on, which is much more lucrative for them.
I mean, in the same way that the 3DS is such an RPG god at the moment, it'd be Nintendo will definitely try to replicate that with the NX. They'd be mad not to.
I feel like there is some kind of big partnership happening between Square and Nintendo now, especially because they were one of the first companies to say that they were making an NX game with Dragon Quest XI and all that stuff happening earlier on in the year. It seems like their hands are being shaken.
Exactly.
You could say maybe that Sakurai is just best buds with everyone, but I'm not inclined to believe that that's 100%
but, I mean,
true. So.
Nintendo are pretty bruised from the whole Wii U experience, and Cloud is he is so much more than just a character in Smash Brothers. He practically is the mascot of the company. And
he's a metaphor for Nintendo's downfall more than anything else.
Yes.
He is a stand-in for the point at which they started to go downhill. And I think the symbolic nature of him coming to Smash Brothers is almost Phoenix from the ashes. It's like this resurrection kind of thing going on, which is pretty exciting.
It's big news, and it's exciting times because I mean I need to get my game on with some Final Fantasy, and I would love to try out Final Fantasy 7 on the NX if that does become a thing, but we'll see.
Yeah, I'm very intrigued by that remake and what they're going to do to it. I feel like they're going to piss off a lot of people who love the original, but I don't think I can go back to that original PS1 game. It's a far cry from like being able to go back to Super Nintendo stuff. Like PS1 is just
It's like N64.
Oh boy.
It's a bit tough.
Yeah, I'll say that like the least enjoyable part of Evoland, which I talked about last time, was when they went into the PS1 era, and it's like pre-rendered backgrounds and slow movement, and it's hilarious.
They're historically accurate.
Exactly. No, they even add in like loading screens with a disc.
That is hilarious.
It's amazing. It's amazing. So yeah, that's one reason why you don't want to go back to that stuff.
Well, thank you very much, Terence, for that question, and you're predicting the future. If you have any more predictions for the future, do send them in. And you know the email address, Terence. It's thisnintendolife@gmail.com. That's thisnintendolife@gmail.com. And for anyone else...
If you could tell us when Zelda's coming out, that'd be real nice.
Tell us what the NX actually looks like as well. That'd be cool. And if anyone else can tell the future, send in your emails to thisnintendolife@gmail.com.
We should say also that if you are going to send an email in that is like time sensitive or relevant to something that's going on right now, we're probably much more likely to read it because otherwise it will be redundant after the fact or anything like that. So
absolutely.
If an event happens or something in the world of games that you want us to talk about at that point in time, go ahead and do that, and you'll probably be read out on the show earlier than other people.
So talking of stuff that's relevant at this point in time, our next two shows are going to be all about our games of the year. So that means if you want an email read out on the show in the next two shows, tell us about your favorite games of the year, and we might read them out.
Exactly. Give us some of your lists, what your favorite games were this year, whether they came out this year or not, whatever you want to do. Try and send in your favorite games that you played, and we'll compare notes, should we say.
We will indeed. But in the meantime, join us in the third segment when we are going to be talking about sales and Black Friday and lovely gaming goodness. So join us after the break.
Society.
All right, everyone, welcome back to the third and final segment of the show. This week we decided, it's kind of timely. Thanksgiving has just happened for the old Americans over there, over the pond, and the sales have begun. I mean, the big thing in the US is the whole Black Friday thing. It used to not really exist here. And I remember, Bally, that I was talking to people, back in the Pokemon days and all these people that I knew in America, and they'd all be talking about Black Friday. I was like, what's that? That sounds like a weird thing. And they're like, oh, it's a crazy time after Thanksgiving where sales happen. And
do you know why it's called Black Friday?
What, is there a specific reason?
Yeah.
Okay, tell me. Enlighten me with your knowledge.
So for the majority of companies, I don't know what type of companies, just general companies that sell stuff, up until Black Friday, they're making a loss on their products, because everyone buys stuff in the run up to the holiday season.
Sure.
So at that point they're in the red. And then Black Friday is when they sell lots of stuff and they go into the black or the positive.
Oh.
So it's the Friday when it turns to black.
Interesting.
So it goes from red to black. But yeah.
Cool. Okay, well, that's a nice little anecdotal thing that tells us all about the history.
I'm gonna get some American correcting me soon, but for now, that's definitely what it means.
Anyway, my point was that it was a thing that I knew of years ago, and no one else in the UK had really heard of it, right? Because it's a cultural thing, it's an American thing.
Yeah.
Until like a couple of years ago, when it started creeping into other places, the UK and Australia, and for some reason it's now a global thing, and it doesn't make much sense because we don't have Thanksgiving in this country, nor do any other countries. So it's become like this huge commercial stuff that everyone's just pushing because everyone needs an excuse to make money, and you know, that's how capitalism works. Buy things, right? So anyway, we thought we'd have a little discussion about, you know, sales and sales culture and how it hurts, harms the industry, whether Nintendo are good at it, what they need to do better, all that stuff. Where do you want to start here, Bally? Let's talk maybe about Nintendo and their history with sales, because it really hasn't been until very, very recent times that they have actually started doing them, right? Like, back in the Wii days, there were never sales on the Wii Shop channel.
No, and it has only been since they've done digital copies of games, and you know the eShop has really sort of taken off since the 3DS and the Wii U, and just on top of that, they just started implementing these sort of sales, and they're in general they're really random. Is the other thing, like
right. So a thing that I wanted to point out is a neat thing that Nintendo have allowed people to do on that platform, most notably indie developers, although you know, third-party publishers can do this as well, is that they allow them to choose when their games go on sale, and they can set a whatever discount or whatever price they want within reason. I think they probably discussed that a bit. They don't want people to be selling stuff for like 10 pence or some crazy thing, but you know, to some degree, they choose the time when it goes up and the price it goes up, and it seems like that has worked out pretty well, because you know, there have been times when Ubisoft have been like, okay, we have a few, you know, deals and things on the eShop, let's have a sale, and then Assassin's Creed and Rayman and Zombie U and all these things will just go on sale for a bit, and you know, they can, you know, get people who haven't picked up their stuff yet to get on the ground floor. So that's been a pretty good thing overall, I think. Like, Nintendo have no longer started to become like the number one gatekeeper for games that they don't make on that platform.
Yeah, so. And it's really great because it's sort of implemented with a watch list, or you know, a list of your favorite games that you want to buy, and you're able to just constantly check on your watch list and see, oh, this game that's on my watch list is discounted, I think I'll pick it up now. And that's ultimately the way in which I've bought so many games that I've talked about on this show, is that I've got a select few games that I'm keen to pick up at some point, and I just wait for them to go on sale, get them a bit cheaper, and just add them to my backlog, you know, and then get around to playing them.
Yeah, it's definitely changed things, and it really is the first time that we see first-party Nintendo titles being sometimes discounted. Now, in the past, and certainly at retail, like, it almost never occurs. Nintendo games, as many people say, hold their value. Like Mario Kart 8, if you go out and try and buy it in a retail store now, you'll still probably have to pay 40 quid for it, you know? It's just the type of game that, for some reason, Nintendo value their products to the point where they don't think it's a good idea to put them on sale. Otherwise, people will just wait for that, right? Whereas if it's an evergreen thing, and a lot of their games are evergreen, if they keep them at that competitive price point, then people just buy them whenever. Like, they're not going to wait for a specific period in time. And so it has changed a little bit that they've started to do these digital things. They never do a huge discount on them, though, Bally. And do you think that's maybe to their detriment? I think there are a lot of people angry right now that these games aren't at a higher discount price. Or do you think that the fact that they're at a discount at all is reason for people to jump in?
I think maybe it's unfair to judge the Wii U because it is performing so poorly, and you could argue that perhaps far more sales would be more fair,
right.
And in general. But I think, imagine the Wii U was a regular, you know, successful system, had sold 30 million plus or something. I think it would be more logical to maybe cut hard on some of perhaps the launch games, you know, like New Super Mario Bros. U, Nintendo Land, stuff that came out at launch that I think the interest has certainly perhaps dropped. And I don't know, maybe a game like Mario Maker certainly pushed the interest in a game like New Super Mario Bros. Right up the agenda. But
maybe, yeah.
I just feel that's one area where they're often plenty of games that we might pass by that, we are totally willing to buy if they were given a heavy discount. And if it's an old game like a New Super Mario Bros. Or something like Pikmin 3, and I know that was on sale, but just heavier cuts, like really cheap. I mean, like 10 to 15 quid sort of price.
Do you think, though, perhaps that the fact they don't give deep discounts on the digital storefront is to do with trying to still maintain relationships with retailers? Because it seems to me that if they go and cut their products to such a degree on the digital storefront, people will wait for those and they won't go to the retailers for the games.
Yeah, I think that is what they're doing. I just wish that they would find alternate routes where they can almost run like a two-tier market where they can still do the really heavy sales for people who might prefer to buy digital. I think we would obviously prefer to buy digital if they did do heavier sales. But then
Sure.
when we're talking about retail space, I think the value of having codes in like a cardboard box on a shelf is really important for that mum going to the shop to buy a game for their kid market. And on top of that, I think the addition of amiibo and stuff like that, Nintendo can definitely wangle their way some sort of deal to have a combination of codes and cardboard boxes and amiibos that I think could look absolutely fine in a retail store, but at the same time offer heavy discounts online.
Do you ever see the day when Nintendo will discount their games very quickly after launch? Like, for example, this year The Witcher 3 came out, and it's already down to 50% off in current sales that are happening. Do you foresee a future where that happens for Nintendo at all, like with NX? Or is the fact that they are the sole people supporting their platform the reason why they have to maintain a high price point?
I I think they maintain a high price point because of like what we said before, like just the way that their games remain so relevant. And I even sort of tripped over my own argument before when I suggested the big discount on New Super Mario Bros. It's very consistent of Nintendo to release another game that might draw interest into another game, like Mario Maker drawing interest into a game like New Super Mario Bros. That could drive sales. So
Right.
I can imagine they might not want New Super Mario Bros. To be overly cheap, or likewise a game like Smash Brothers, which can encourage people to buy any number of games. And on that topic, they even did like relevant sales for Super Smash Brothers when it did come out in the UK, which was quite cool, where they sort of discounted all the games that were incorporated into Smash Brothers, which was nice. And I think that theming of sales is really important, and I can see them continuing that because they have such great theming in general and crossover between certain games and stuff like that. So I think that's good. I just think there's too many. The prices are just too high at times, and it is
Right,
really
and I mean,
frustrating.
like, we have been discussing this. They are doing a holiday sale in the UK. And number one, they're only doing 4 deals a day, 2 on Wii U and 2 on 3DS, which is kind of pitiful compared to what North America is getting. And you can argue it doesn't really, we don't deserve it anyway because it's Black Friday and it's not relevant to us. But hey, this is the world we live in now, so yes, it is
Yeah.
relevant.
Yeah.
And just looking at those deals, they are terrible. For example, Codename Steam was down to $21.99 or something. And I tweeted, Codename Steam, you could go and buy this supposed sale on the eShop. Alternatively, the game is 15 quid on Amazon right now. Like, that's the issue here, is like, they put the sales out there, but they're never good enough. And I think when we live in a world like this, where the Steam sale is just off the fucking chain, and PSN is catching up, and Xbox Live are doing, like, much better deals, Nintendo have their deals, but they just don't punctuate through as much. Like, people aren't going to be raving on the internet about, oh my god, this crazy deal on the eShop, go buy it now. It doesn't get that word of mouth going, you know?
Yeah, there's only been one time, like I think ever, where it was more beneficial for me to do one of these Nintendo sales versus buying on Amazon, and that was when I bought DK Tropical Freeze, and it was the same price on both of them, but if I downloaded it, I got the free no, I didn't get it free, but I got a massive discount if I downloaded Donkey Kong Country 1 on the Super Nintendo.
Right.
And I was quite keen to try out that game, so I went for it. But that situation is far too rare, and you're exactly right. Amazon is just undercutting them completely. And we're in this stupid position of half my games are downloaded, half of them are hard copy, and I'm just buying whichever one is cheapest. I'd way rather just have a collection of digital games or a collection of hard copy games. It's just a bit of a faff to have to just constantly seek the better deal between Amazon or the eShop. It's not. I really hope it can be sorted for the NX, and I'm worried that rather than them matching Amazon, they'll just make Amazon put their prices up or something. I don't know.
On that point of you getting Donkey Kong Country at a discount with Tropical Freeze, do you think that that is maybe a better tack to take? That they could, instead of having deep discounts, maybe be like, have a discount, but also get this bonus thing that ties in a virtual console game or
Yes.
an indie title. That may be the route for them.
Absolutely. I thought I've been so like we've seen so many reviews of Mario Tennis on the Wii U getting absolutely panned, and then all of a sudden I saw it on the eShop and I think it's £35. I can't remember. 35 anyway.
Probably, yeah.
But they're like, if you download this game, you get a free copy of the Game Boy Advance version of Mario Tennis. And I was like, whoa. Like, I've never played that game, and I was actually for a bit quite tempted to just bite because, Mario Tennis on GBA has gotten great reviews in the past. It's got like an RPG mode in it, all this great stuff. I completely appreciate that the Wii U version is a bit ass, but that's life. I love the idea of getting free games, and when they have all these digital games ready to go on the eShop, they're already quite cheap. Just give them massive discounts or make them free, or just do these bundles that are just exciting, and they enhance the Nintendo brand. I would never have played Donkey Kong Country 1 otherwise, and it was nice that I could get a massive discount and experience one of their old games, and it's building up their DK brand and their the synergy between their franchises. It's just, I wish they'd do a bit more of that. They're doing some, but not enough.
Yeah, it's a tough thing for them, I think, because as the sole supporters of their platform, they can't undervalue their properties too much, because they're really the only ones, selling on it. Like that's an issue. Whereas with third parties, like they can sell on multiple platforms, and by having a sale, they can push word of mouth, and like lots of people own those platforms, and so it kind of perpetrates. And despite them selling at a lower price, they probably end up making a profit. And that's the big thing about the Steam sale is, I think to some degree, like, it's wonderful for consumers, right? It just allows you to get incredible games for a ridiculously low price, like some obscene deals that are going on there. But do you worry that maybe this idea of everyone buying in and waiting for sales damages the industry to some degree, especially on platforms like PC, where it essentially means that not many people are buying day one because they know at some point in the future the price will be way lower?
Yeah, it is tricky, and I think the industry has become tiered in a way where if you are a AAA game, like that, you are playing a premium to play day one, and I think the community, and certainly I, have kind of accepted that like if we want to play a game day one and talk about it and like keep it super relevant on the podcast and all that, it is going to cost us. I also think that the other tiers include, stuff like indie games that are sort of £10 to £20 normally. I think that's really healthy. And I just hope that games can find their relevant tier and keep it competitive and keep it relevant.
Right.
And it is kind of worrying when you see, well, the Steam model is quite unique because it's such a high entrance cost to buy a PC that can operate with all these AAA amazing looking games like Witcher 3 and things like that. Like, you are paying a premium in order to experience that before you might have the ability to download it for £10, £5 or whatever sale it's on later. So I do think it's balanced, and I think it's nice that there are smaller, cheaper experiences on all the games consoles, including the Wii. And like, I'm really looking forward to playing Fast Racing Neo, and like that.
Right, and you can get that day one for 15 quid. Like, that's going to be
Yeah.
a great price, and you don't have to worry about, like, you could wait for a sale on it, but, like, it's it's not a stupidly expensive thing, so it's a nice barrier to entry.
Exactly. So I will be happy with where the industry's going as long as it remains tiered. And
Yeah.
sometimes I can buy a brand new experience for a lot of money, but I also like it where you can buy like a cheaper game, like the Shovel Knight DLC, which was free for goodness sake. So
Yeah.
little stuff like that. And then on top of that, I think in general, I'm quite okay with a lot of the eShop prices for virtual console games, especially. I think
Yeah, maybe some are a little
general.
high. It can be a bit hit and miss on those, but like
That's
for the
true.
most part, they're not terrible. Like
No.
they're okay.
And I mean they're going on sale as well, which is exciting. So it's nice
Yeah.
to see that these sales do have an impact.
I will say the thing that Valve kind of has over the competition is that they're not competing with retail. Like, they are a 100% digital storefront, and as such, they can kind of do whatever the fuck they want. Like, it doesn't matter that, basically, physical PC stuff hasn't been relevant for the last like 5-6 years, like probably longer than that. But like they basically changed the game so that they don't need to worry about kind of clashing with the retail partners. And I think for Sony, Microsoft, and Nintendo, that's still unfortunately an obstacle that they have to get over.
Yeah, and I don't know how you that relationship between retail and online. Like, would it be possible for Nintendo to ever do like a unified sale between retail and online at the same time in some way?
Yeah,
Like
no,
you
it
could you
doesn't.
could like I'm just imagining if you took your code home and then while you're downloading it there'd be like some notification like, oh, actually this game is on sale, and but that kind of defeats the whole the effort someone would make to buy that game in the first place. They've already decided
Sure.
to buy it, and I don't know. I don't know. It's weird.
It is, yeah. I think the real problem is that just we're kind of stuck in limbo right now, where like digital is a very stark reality, and we could move there if we wanted, but retail hasn't died yet, and it's gonna happen. It's on the edge,
And
like probably.
I think Nintendo are in the same position as us. They're just waiting to see what happens, and as long as it's not
Just let the dust settle, I guess.
exactly, as long as it's not massively swung one way or another, they're just sitting on the fence with it, and that's what they've definitely done with Wii U 3DS.
Yeah.
And I can imagine them doing the same for NX, unfortunately. But
I'm interested to see if Nintendo continue doing things like the Humble Nindy bundle that they did earlier this year, I think it was, and hopefully expanding that to territories which aren't just North America. We'd like to have one of those over here as well, But I wonder if like they continue to push indies on their platform and try and cultivate those relationships to get things like these crazy sales with Humble Bundle going.
yeah,
Do you think that's
yeah,
something they might lean into?
I hope so. But at the same time, I don't know how keen I am on the idea of picking up a bundle of games that just, clogs up my backlog because I feel
Well,
so.
yeah, right, but I mean that's the thing with Steam is like I have now come to accept that I'm never going to play all my Steam games, but
Yeah,
it's a nice thing with Humble Bundle because yeah, you're paying like nothing and getting a bunch of games that may clog up your backlog, but you're also giving some money to charity. Like it's a cool thing as well at the same time. So
yeah,
I feel like their model is great, honestly.
yeah. No, that's true. That does sound quite good. Um,
I'm also interested, like, whether Nintendo will start putting their DLC on sale at any point. I think maybe a lot of people are hoping that some of the Smash Brothers stuff goes because, like, I like those stages that they've put up, but I'm not really willing at the moment to like go and buy those two N64 stages. It'd be cool to have them, but I kind of want like a deeper discount on that stuff, and I do hope that in the future they consider doing stuff like discounting their DLC. Because
yeah,
there are lots of people who own those games, and I think they would benefit to get people in the door who ordinarily wouldn't pay that price for that stuff.
yeah. Or put like a bundle on those things. They
Right,
had one bundle before, but it included all of the Mii costumes. And I was
right,
like,
stuff that people don't really want.
yeah, like I don't know, could you even customize what bundle you want or something? I don't
Sure.
know, but it's just that Smash Brothers DLC does seem quite expensive. Now, I completely understand designing a character and stuff like that with Ryu, etc. That can understandably cost a lot, but these Mii costumes and the stages, they seem to be
Right, especially
quite
the
pricey.
N64 stages, which are literally just taken from another game, you know?
Yeah, they're, Nintendo are getting there, and like if you compare where they are now to 5, 7 years ago, it's
Hmm.
a stark difference, which is really
Oh, it is. It's night and
refreshing.
day, which is good. But
But it's just there's a couple of pricey bad deals out there.
yeah. Well, I guess let's maybe talk about Black Friday in general, Bally, and like
Why is it
the
before the
craze of it
holiday
all.
season? It's weird. Like
Yeah,
that's
so
when
let's
you.
like let's break it down. Here in the UK, like the way that sales have usually gone is you go for Christmas, you buy stuff for Christmas, and then the day after, as we know it, Boxing Day, that's when you go out, that's when you go crazy and spend money, which I guess helps the retail space because they sell everyone up on a premium before Christmas and then they get rid of the shit they don't need afterwards and still
Yeah,
make money.
yeah,
Like that obviously in a capitalist market that makes way more sense than the stuff that's happening on Black Friday. And yet
yeah.
Black Friday seems to be this bigger worldwide phenomenon now. I don't know why that's happened, Bally. It's
I,
interesting.
well, yeah, and like Black Friday is obviously there to. I don't even want to say it's the start of, winter sales because you imagine a lot of people might have started their Christmas shopping earlier than Black
Yeah.
Friday, so it's almost like in the middle of Christmas shopping, which is just
Mhm.
strange. I really can't understand the economics of it. I guess just getting people out there and
I
like I was
think maybe
watching.
as well is the idea that families are all together in Thanksgiving, and it makes sense that you would like from an organizational standpoint be able to be going out with members of your family and buying in bulk for other members of your family and kind of coordinating as it were, you know? Like if that's the way
Hmm.
that people spend Thanksgiving, then it is a logical step to be like, okay, the next day we go out and try and sort shit out before we all come together for Christmas again, you know?
Yeah, and I feel like on Boxing Day people would also shop in sort of as families and things like that. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's a strange one, and I think like I was watching Kind of Funny Games
Hmm.
Well, I guess it was the Game Over Greggy show actually, and
Yes.
it was really interesting just to see like their response to it, and like Colin Moriarty was just talking about how he just hates Black Friday and he hates like the culture that it's become and like
Mm.
and I agree with him on a lot of what he says about that kind of thing. And he was saying how he just buys everything online and he doesn't see why everyone else doesn't just buy stuff online. And I kind of agree. I think it's strange that there are all these great online Black Friday deals, but people still feel obliged to, go out and get the ridiculously cheap television like physical on the day, and it's just a bit strange.
It is, I think it's more to do with the fact that the people who are going out there are of the older persuasion, like more like parents who necessarily haven't got much experience shopping online. And I think, especially more in America, there are a lot of people who prefer going out into the retail space and with their massive stores and everything and like having everything in one place allows you to maybe like take a look at something before you buy it. And I think lots of people maybe have that philosophy, but for me personally, I cannot stand the idea of going out and doing something like that. Like it's so much
Yeah.
more convenient and cheap, and it just makes more logical sense for me to sit on my ass at home, scroll through Amazon, and say like, bring this to my door without me having to do anything.
Yeah.
Like it's kind of it's a no brainer, and I don't understand the craze of it all.
I really just hate high street shopping. Like it's just no fun. I don't like it. And like I mean, yes, I will go out to buy clothes and food, but I think that's literally all I kind of buy from, shops and things. I try to
Hmm.
get everything else online, including like Christmas gifts and things like that. So,
Yeah.
and I don't know, it's just these crazy videos you see about Black Friday. That is just
Yeah.
like that makes my soul hurt. Like that is like it is
It
so
does.
It's like if you feel you need a TV like that badly at that price, you don't need a TV. Like you just need to
No.
you need to calm down. Like it's ridiculous how violent that stuff can get. And they are probably those videos are probably the outrageous 1%. I completely get that,
Sure.
but I'm worried at that image. Certainly the whole idea of Black Friday
The
portrays.
fact that it even happens is a scary precedent, you know?
Yeah, and the idea that this scary precedent is spreading to places like the UK and Australia, like we were saying, that's even more scary because it's like
I do feel though that like when it comes to the UK, it's much more in the online space that they're pushing the Black Friday stuff. I don't see that many outlets like plastering like posters saying come Black Friday to this. Like it feels like the retail space doesn't do it as much, and because of the internet and because of the worldwide nature of the world at this point, that's a weird phrase, but sure.
worldwide nature of
Yeah, the worldwide nature of the world. It's
globalized nature of the world.
yeah, sure. We'll go with that one. It seems the internet is a better venue to spread it essentially. So. I guess like before we wrap this up, do you have anything that you'd like to see Nintendo do in the approach to sales in the future? How they could change it in any way to make the stuff better?
More or less what I was saying before about the whole bundles are cool. That's a cool idea, and just really utilizing like there's all these digital games they have up there on the virtual console. Bundle those into deals more, heavier discounts, sometimes free, like Mario Tennis, like I was talking about. That stuff really excites gamers like me, especially. And there are so many games in their backlog that I've not played, and if I got them for free, I'd absolutely give them a go, and like that excites me. So I'd like more free games and that's the thing. Like they don't cost them anything extra because these are just digital
Right.
games. The only downside, arguably, is that they're devaluing the brand of, I
Uh-huh.
don't know, Fire Emblem or, I don't know, Donkey Kong. So
Sure.
that's the only argument, and that's a very hard argument to, quantify numerically. So it might be
Yeah.
quite a tough juggling act for them. But that's what I'd like to see.
Cool. Yeah, I guess just try and keep going on the path that they've been going, and hopefully just make the discounts more of a good proposition for the consumer. Because I think a lot of the time they tout it as like, oh, this is a great deal, and it really isn't. So I'd rather them steer away from like the stuff which isn't so great, and maybe on rarer occasions have much bigger and deeper discounts, and maybe emphasize that a bit more. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it. I'm going to wrap up our conversation about sales and stuff on Nintendo platforms and sales culture in general. And that is basically going to be the episode. So, before we go, we want to remind you that you can send in emails about your games of the year, because next episode we're going to be talking about that stuff. So, do send your emails to our address. And where can they do that, Bally?
Please send your emails to thisnintendolife@gmail.com. That's thisnintendolife@gmail.com. We want to hear your top 10 games that you played this year that didn't actually come out this year, because that's what we are going to be tackling next show.
Sure, that would be nice to hear from as many people as possible. We can also be found on the Twitter, where we'll be giving you reminders about sending in emails, and you can follow that Twitter account at TNL Podcast. You can find me on Twitter. I'm at Lordnbz, and Lordnbz is my Miiverse name as well. What about you, Bally?
I'm at Ballyman91 on Twitter. That's BALLYMAN91. That is also my name on the Miiverse, posting lots about all the wonderful games I'm playing in the run-up to the end of the year and Xenoblade.
Yeah, very exciting. That is just around the corner. I need to hop over these essays and make my way home, Bally, so I can dive into some Xenoblade.
Not long to go.
You can go over to iTunes and you can find the show there. You can review us if you want, and we actually had a new review recently. So, Bally, we're going to read that out.
We had a review from DAMC34. I had to write a review for this podcast because of the Game of the Year podcast from last year. I couldn't stop laughing at Z and B negotiating for which games would make the top 10, then the top 3. The hosts are good friends, and that comes off clearly in the podcast. I appreciate their candid words and that they don't paint Nintendo in a rosy light. My only hit on the show is they cuss, and I like to listen to my podcasts around the house, but I can't with my little ones around. If you love Nintendo and you have headphones when around children, you will love listening to this podcast.
Well, thanks very much for that review. That gave us a little laugh when he was mentioning his kids and not being able to listen while they're around. I do put the explicit tag on iTunes, which is kind of strange when you're looking over a Nintendo podcast and it says explicit, and it's like, well, that's not what Nintendo are all about, are they? They're very kid friendly. But yeah, I appreciate that, and thanks for the kind words. It's a nice review.
I'm sure we've taught some kids some swear words.
Maybe we might have done. That's a bit
some
bad stuff going on in the world.
Very bad.
So yeah, you can review us. Please go over to iTunes and do as you will. And that would be fantastic. You can, subscribe over there. You can find us on Stitcher. We go up on YouTube. We put out a Xenoblade spoiler cast last week, which hopefully you guys are enjoying. And if you haven't played the game yet, then hell, get on that because the sequel's coming out very soon. Yeah. So that is pretty much it for us. We're going to be back in 2 weeks' time with big Game of the Year stuff. It's fun times ahead, Bally. I'm looking forward to it.
Fun times. Everyone loves Game of the Year.
Yes, I'm excited. So we'll see you then. Until that time comes. Thanks for listening. Thanks for sticking with us, and we'll see you very, very soon. Goodbye. The musical interludes used in today's show were the title screen song from Axiom Verge, copyright Tom Happ, 2015, and Society from Ollie Ollie, copyright Roll7, 2014. We did record that Xenoblade spoiler cast, but we haven't been playing any other things that aren't that. I mean, we have. What am I saying? I don't know. God fucking. What was that sentence? What the fuck was that sentence?